is Drakestail. Drakestail was very little, so that is why he was called Drakestail. But tiny as he was, he had brains, and he knew what he was about, for having begun with nothing and ended by amassing 100 crowns. Now the king of the country, who was very extravagant and never kept any money, having heard that Drakestail had some, went one day in his own person to borrow his hoard. And, my word, in those days Drakestail was not a little proud of having lent money to a king. But after the first and second year, seeing that they had never dreamt of paying the interest, he became uneasy, so much so that he at last resolved to go and see his majesty himself and get repaid. So one fine morning, Drakestail, very spruce and fresh, takes to the road singing. I gotta sing again. Quack, 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 when shall I get my money back? He had not gone far when he met his friend Fox, on his rounds that way. Good morning, neighbor, says the friend. Where are you off to so early? I am going to the king for what he owes me. Oh, take me with thee. Drakestail said to himself, One can't have too many friends. I will. He says, But going on all fours, you will soon be tired. Make yourself quite small and get into my throat. Go into my gizzard, and I will carry you. Happy thought, says friend Fox. He takes the bag and baggage, and presto, is gone like a letter into the post. Then Drakestail is off again, all spruce and fresh, still singing, Quack, 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 when shall I have my money back? He had not gone far when he met his lady friend, Ladder, leaning on her wall. Good morning, my duckling, says lady friend. Whither is the way so bold? I am going to the king for what he owes me. Oh, take me with thee. Drakestail said to himself, One can't have too many friends. I will, he says. But with your wooden legs you will soon be tired. Make yourself quite small. Get into my throat, into my gizzard, and I will carry you. Happy thought, says my friend Ladder. Nimble bag and package goes to keep company with friend Fox. And quack, 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 Drakestail is off again, singing as spruce as before. A little farther he meets his sweetheart, my friend River, wandering quietly in the sunshine. Thou, my cherub, says she, whither so lonesome with arching tail and muddy road? I am going to the king, you know, for what he owes me. Oh, take me with thee. Drakestail said to himself, We can't have too many friends. I will, says he. But you who sleep while you walk will soon be tired. Make yourself quite small, get into my throat, into my gizzard, and I will carry you. Happy thoughts, says friend River. She takes bag and baggage, and glow, 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 she takes her place between friend Fox and my friend Ladder. And quack, 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 Drakestail is off, singing again. A little farther he meets on Comrade Wasp Nests, maneuvering his wasps. Good morning, friend Drakestail, says Comrade Wasp's Nest. Where are we bound for so spruce and fresh? I am going to the king for what he owes me. wanting me with thee? Drakestail said to himself. One can't have too many friends. I will, says he. But with your battalion to drag along, you will soon be tired. Make yourself quite small, go into my throat, get into my gizzard, and I will carry you. By Jove, that's a good idea, said Comrade Wasp's Nest. And left file, he takes some of the same road to join the others with all his party. There was not much more room left, but by closing up bits they managed. And Drakestail is off again singing. He arrived thus at the capital, and treading his way up the high street, and singing and running, Quack, 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 when shall I get my money back? To the great astonishment of the good folks, till he came to the king's palace. He strikes on the knocker. Tuk, tuk. Who is there? Asked the porter, putting his head out the wicket. 'Tis I, Drakestail. I wish to speak to the king. Speak to the king? That's easily said. The king is dining and will not be disturbed. Tell him that it is I, and I have come where he knows well. The porter shuts his wicket and goes up to say it to the king, who was just sitting down to dinner with a napkin round his neck, and with all of his ministers. Good, good, said the king, laughing. I know what it is. Make him come in and put him in with the turkeys and chickens. The porter descends. Have the goodness to enter. Gad, says Drakestail to himself. I shall now see that they eat at court. This way, says the porter. One step further. There you go. How? What? In the poultry yard? Fancy how vexed Drakestail was. Ah, so that's it, he says. Wait, I will compel you to receive me. Quack, quack, quack. When shall I get my money back? But the turkeys and chickens are creatures who don't like people who are not as themselves. When they saw the newcomer and how he was made, and when they heard him crying too, they began to look black at him. What is it? What does he want? Finally, they all rush at him together to overwhelm him with pecks. I'm lost, said Drakestail to himself. When by good luck he remembers his comrade friend Fox, and cries, Reynard, Reynard, come out of your earth, for Drakestail's life is of little worth. Then friend Fox, who was only waiting for these woods, hastens out and throws himself on the wicked fowls, and quick, quack, he tears them to pieces, so much so that at the end of 5 minutes there was not one left alive. And then Drakestail, quite content, began to sing again. Quack, 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 when shall I get my money back? When the king, who was still at the table, heard this refrain, and the poultry woman came to tell him what had been going on in the yard, he was terribly annoyed. He ordered them to throw his tail of the drake into the well, and make an end of him. And it was done as commanded, and Drakestail was in despair of getting himself out of such a deep hole. Then he remembered his lady friend, the ladder. Ladder, ladder, come out of thy hold, or Drakestail's days will soon be told. My friend Ladder, who was only waiting for these words, hastened out and leans her 2 arms on the edge of the well. Then Drakestail climbs nimbly up her back, and hop, he is in the yard, where he begins to sing louder than ever. When the king, who was still at table and laughing at the good trick he played on his creditor, he heard him again reclaiming his money, and became livid with rage. He commanded that a furnace should be heated, and this tail of a drake thrown into it, because he must be a sorcerer. The furnace was soon hot, but this time Drakestail was not so afraid. He counted on his sweetheart, my friend River.
River, river, outward flow, or to death Drakestail will go.
My friend River hastens out, and a roof throws herself into the furnace, which she floods, with all the people who had lighted it, after which she was flowing, growling into the hall of the palace to the height of more than 4 feet. And Drakestail, quite content, begins to swim, singing definitely,
"Quack, quack, quack, when shall I get my money back?"
The king was still at his table, and thought himself quite sure of his game, but when he heard Drakestail singing again, and when they told him all that had passed, he became furious and got up from the table, brandishing his fists. "Bring him here, and I'll cut his throat! Bring him here quick!" cried he. And quickly 2 footmen ran to fetch Drakestail.
"At last," said the poor old chap, going up the great stairs, "they have decided to receive me."
Imagine his terror on entering. He sees the king as red as a turkey cock, and all his ministers attending him, standing with a sword in hand. He thought that this time all was up with him. Happily, he remembered that there was still one friend remaining, and he cried with dying accents,
"Wasp's nest, make a sally, or Drakestail nevermore may rally."
Whereupon the scene changes. Bzz, bzz, bayonet them! The brave waspnet rushes out with all his wasps. They threw themselves on the infuriated king and his ministers, and all stung them so fiercely in the face that they lost their heads. And not knowing where to hide themselves, they all jumped pell-mell from the window and broke their necks on the pavement. Behold, Drakestail, much astonished, all alone in the big saloon and master of the field. He could not get over it. Nevertheless, he remembered shortly what he had come for the palace, and improving on the occasion, he set to work to hunt for his dear money. But in vain he rummaged in all the drawers. He found nothing. All of it had been spent. Thus, ferreting from room to room, he came at last to one with the throne in it, and feeling fatigued, he sat himself down on it to think over his adventure. In the meanwhile, the people had found their king and his ministers with their feet in the air on the pavement, or they had gone into the palace to know how it had happened. On entering the throne room, when the crowd saw that there was already someone on the royal seat, they broke out in cries of surprise and joy. "The king is dead! Long live the king! Heaven has sent us down this thing!" Drakestail, who was no longer surprised at anything, received the acclamation of the people as if he had never done anything else all his life. A few of them even certainly murmured that a Drakestail would make a fine king. Those who knew him replied that knowing Drakestail was more worth a king than a spendthrift like him who was lying in the pavement. In short, they all ran over and took the crown off the head of the deceased and placed it on the Drakestail, whom fitted it like wax. Thus he became king. And now, after the ceremony, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to supper. I am so hungry.